I'm tired.
The Late Morning Program with Nam Ras Podcast.
Hare Krishna, everyone. You are listening to the Late Morning Program with Nam Ras, the #1 Hare Krishna podcast in the world, self-proclaimed, as I think most people know. But I'm here with His Holiness Kavichandra Swami. Kavichandra Maharaj, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Let's see what we can do.
Yes. So Kavichandra Maharaj is one of the longest standing members of the GBC, the governing body commission of ISKCON. So I wanted to bring Maharaj on to just talk about his journey in Krishna consciousness, as well as talk about a little bit about the governing body. What's the reason we have a governing body, and maybe clear up some misconceptions about what they do and things like that. So maybe we can start off there, Maharaj. Please tell us how you, where did you grow up, and how did you come in contact with devotees?
Okay, I born and grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota suburbs, and was, like a jack of all trades type. I never really got into anything very much, but in high school, I started reading all kinds of philosophy books, whatever I could find.
Right.
And, got some kind of interest in God or whatever. I went to church and stuff, but I found it quite boring. And then we had the beatnik philosophers, which we really got into, Allen Ginsberg and Ferlinghetti and Jack Kerouac. And I studied very thoroughly. There was a series called The Playboy Philosopher in the Playboy magazine, where they had everybody played and watch Jack Parr and see all these people that, supposed to be adult. So then I went to university for a little while. I never had no interest in anything. I used to think I should go to New York, and it was exactly the time Prabhupada came when I started the university. But somehow I never got moving. And then as time went on, I took a yoga class, got interested in that. And from that teacher, at least I found out about Krishna. He was Mayavadi, and I wasn't, didn't want to surrender to him, but he had pictures of Krishna on the wall, and he did play the Maha Mantra from the London. So that got me a little bit interested in. At that time, in our city there, on the radio was always Govinda Madi Prusham.
Right.
That's George Harrison with the Radha Krishna Temple in London. So that was really exciting. So finally, I thought I have to get out of here. If I'm going to find a guru, I have to get out of Minneapolis. It was a dried up place. And so I took off. And on the way, when I was heading south, that's when My Sweet Lord came out. So I started hearing the Maha Mantra all the time.
Oh, wow.
I'd actually heard from Allen Ginsberg also at his poetry reading. He chanted for a half hour or something before he read his poems.
Right.
And then when I got to Oklahoma, I had some friends there. They had George's album, the No 1 ones, the 3 records. I didn't connect at all, but it said, chant the names of the Lord and you'll be free. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. I was desperate, but I didn't know what they were. I couldn't connect it with My Sweet Lord. But the whole thing was very spiritual. So I was really convinced, this is the way to go. And then I got to Tucson, and then I met devotees. They were chanting in front of the campus. And then very soon I just moved in with them. I was married. I had a wife and child, dog. The cat had run away. So after a while, I got rid of the dog. And then we really got into it. And then when Karandar, the GBC, said we should go to Dallas or Houston or something, because where I was all brahmacharis. So we drove to Texas, ended up in Dallas, and was there when we moved into the current building. Then I went to LA, and I they called me there to be in charge of the incense factory, but I was doing book distribution every night, and I think Ramaswar knew that, so he made that arrangement. So even though I was doing the incense factory, I would go out every night.
Wow.
I got really attached to book distribution, started traveling around America, pretty much a lot of places. And I was thinking this, many times we're getting rained out, and, so I somehow got with Tripurari. That was the first airport party. Myself and Tripurari and Sarvabhauma. And we went around to different airports, and then that grew. Then I was in Chicago for a long time with Vaisheshika and Aikatma and Pragosh and Kaziram, a whole crew of powerhouse people.
Right. I think my mother-in-law was there. Was that the same time you were there?
No, she came a little later, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Super Madhajis were there also. I don't remember all the names.
Right.
Then I got in Radha while I was in Philadelphia. Then we got in Radha Damodar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I had the bus. And of course, Tamal Krishnaraj, he wants to test everyone. He gave me all the losers. But then I had Radha Damodar for a little while. This is interesting history. Then I heard that Kirtananda was planning to kidnap them back because Vishwajana had originally taken them from there. So that's when they were sent to Gita Nagari. Radha Damodar went to Gita Nagari. And then Prabhupada left, and then I went to India with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. I was in Juhu. I was general manager of Juhu for some time.
Wow.
Those times not really fit for publication, all the crazy things that were going on. And then, so I went to Fiji. I was there for a year, traveling all over Fiji, and actually made a lot of devotees and distributed a lot of books.
Wow.
And for various reasons, I went back to LA, and it was chaos. Those days were great chaos. If anybody's been watching the history of the GBC, they've heard something about it, the SPT.
Right.
And I was thinking, I got to get out of here. I go to Japan or something where there's no devotees, because everybody was just talking about all the chaos.
What year was this?
79, something like that.
79. Okay, right.
80, maybe it was 80. I can't remember.
Right.
So somehow I got to Japan. It took a long time to get the visa. And there were a few devotees there, but mostly, 100 million karmis, and started distributing books. And somehow Krishna blessed us. We made a lot of devotees. Not a lot, but really good ones, and no Japanese had ever joined before, except for 2 ever in Japan. So it went pretty big. We were #1 book distributors. And that was before India and Russia took off. After that, it would disappear.
Right.
And then I got on the GBC in '87.
Wow.
Now,
can I ask you something about when after Srila Prabhupada left? I know before he was kind of keeping everything together as far as unity and whatnot. But after he left, what was the feeling after? What were you feeling when all this kind of chaotic thing happened, that he had left and then devotees started deviating and things like that?
Well, I started remembering in the 4th canto, there's one paragraph or one sentence that says, when the Acharya leaves, there will be chaos. And,
right.
I'm reading that, and yeah, of course, but then I thought, well, we never could have predicted what kind of chaos would happen, because we had a big society, and a lot of people, suddenly had tremendous power that were, for all, nowadays would be considered new bhaktas. Someone's been a devotee for 7 years, 8 years. All of a sudden, they have hundreds of disciples, millions of dollars.
Wow.
But Prabhupada empowered them to just accomplish unbelievable things with book distribution and properties and temples. But some of them, couldn't handle it, the power. shorted out. So,
right.
So the GBC was dwindling and, having a lot of trouble trying to deal with all this. And of course, if someone disagreed with Prabhupada, they either had to keep their mouth shut or leave,
Right.
Right? But with the GBC, anybody could just say, well, who's he? I know him since he joined. I remember this. I remember, they made so many mistakes, and that's still going on. People have web pages with all the big mistakes the GBC's made. Karmis have also lists of all the mistakes Prabhupada made.
Right.
So because they perceive as mistakes, and we don't perceive as mistakes. Mm-hmm. But for us, not the divine, definitely we're not. So many things were happening, and it, so finally, Rabindra Sarup, there was in America such a revolution, temple presidents complaining about, not the GBC, about the new gurus. And so Rabindra Sarup.
What was the complaint exactly?
Well, there were many were deviating in many different ways. It's
right.
In all kinds of crazy things, and philosophically sometimes like New Vrindavan, spiritually falling down, just leaving, and it was devastating. So he made this 50-man committee with different leaders from around the world, and we met in Mayapur with all the GBC, and the GBC agreed to add a lot of members in '87.
Oh, right.
I can't remember exactly how many, but I happen to be one of them. It's by default, they call in the military battlefield promotions.
Right.
So, and, it looked good. I looked like, somebody because Japan was really flourishing, actually. So that made a big difference. From then, there was a big difference in the way the GBC operated.
So you're saying that before '87, it was kind of like who was appointed GBC before '87?
Well, Prabhupada had appointed before,
and they had stayed there, the same GBC since until '87.
They might have added a few, but Prabhupada basically had appointed people up, and as far as I know, they weren't appointing, very many new ones.
Right.
But some came, I haven't kept track exactly, but the GBC would appoint people. It was, they'd see somebody doing really nicely in their zone or something. So I'm not sure, though, of all the exact dates, because
right.
most of them were around with Prabhupada.
Did you feel that you could do your service better in Japan because you had become a GBC?
It didn't really make any difference because the devotees had no understanding what that was or anything.
Right.
And I had been the only, I started everything. So they accepted me then as, they accepted my authority.
It's kind of natural that you were already the leader there, but then to kind of formalize it.
So it didn't make much difference there or, what I did, because at that time, there wasn't so much organized reporting and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So then, but then as time went on, I got Hawaii and Thailand. And then one day, Tamal Krishna called me up and said, "Hey, Kavi, I'm giving you Indonesia." Wow. So, which was, not really in line. It's supposed to be like a GBC vote and everything, but everyone accepted it. And then I got Greece and then Israel, and then.
How do you keep track of everything?
And there was trouble in West Africa because Kirtananda was the Acharya there.
Right.
And Gopal Krishna was a GBC, but he didn't like to go there for various political reasons. So one day we had just before the GBC meeting, we both went in the washroom at the same time. And he said, you could take West Africa, right? And I went, So as soon as the meeting started, he said, Kavi wants to take West Africa.
Oh my God.
And everybody said, oh, right. So I got that. And so I was never a big pioneer. I went to places that were a big mess, actually, except Japan. Japan, there was something going on, but it was not much. It wasn't happening. They had a temple and they had a little bit of activity. But the other places were a lot of, trouble, conflicts. Hawaii and
The way I see it,
that's how things went on. And that was happening to many devotees. They'd get assigned for some place where they were, and before they knew it, they had this place, that place.
the way I see it, Maharaj, is that, it could seem like it's like you're gaining something, like, and you're gaining some power or influence. But the way you're talking about is that this is actually a burden of love, that you're taking on a zone, and you're kind of in charge of, responsible of what's happening there. So what exactly, like when Tamal Krishna Maharaj called you and said, I want you to take Thailand, what did that mean, like, to take a place?
Well, Indonesia turned out to be my best spot. But when I first went there was a lot of conflicts and it was pretty crazy.
So you had to work all that out?
Yeah, they'd had some problems with the government, and then a lot of internal conflict, and somehow or other, magically, things started to work out. And so now there's like thousands of devotees there. So we're having a little more trouble with the government because they're too successful. But they're natural, Hindus. But so it was a gift because I'd worked with him, and he's not the easiest person to work with when you have a big ego like Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Oh. Because he knew my ego and how proud I was, and so he made a lot of special efforts to smash. But it did make it much easier to deal in places when you have a lot of people like that. So that's. But as far as the GBC functioning, like right now, there's a big movement. It's CPO, the CPO. But where did the CPO come from? Does anybody know? The GBC created it. The GBC created the CPO.
Right.
Because we were very concerned about all the reports of child abuse that were coming in. So that Bhadran Ryan was, I think, the prime mover on that, but everybody took part. Everybody was totally in favor of it. And a few worked on the actual structure. So it was created by the GBC, and given a lot of power, and a lot of good things happened.
Yeah.
When I was first on the GBC, then there was someone made an education committee, and then we made the rules of no capital punishment in not capital. What do you call it? No, corporal.
Corporal, yeah.
In all the schools.
Yeah.
And, those kind of things. And we dealt with some cases, reported cases. It wasn't easy to get reports of child abuse for some time. But gradually they started coming in. And then gradually they weren't coming from schools. They were coming from, stepfathers and things like that. So we turned that over to someone else. But then the CPO was created and many, many things. So the functioning of the GBC, they have to deal with so many things, and it's management. So there were devotees thinking like these guys are having secret meetings up there and they're just planning to control everybody. And then we opened up, and Mukunda Maharaj was pushing for that, opened up to having guests come. And most of them said it's so boring they didn't want to come anymore, They realized that they're actually pretty good guys, they're really trying to do something to help the movement.
Right.
And, so pushing book distribution, making sure different things go on. And now that the movement's getting bigger and bigger, it's, property management. We have a lot of divisions, and planning for so many things. So it's hard to just tell somebody everything that's going on there and what every GBC does. There's not a lot of perks. We don't get a salary. Generally, if there's some kind of project that needs money, they come first to the GBC and say, if you donate, that will inspire everyone else, And you feel pretty much on the spot, So
Yeah.
in the beginning, GBC members totally supported the CPO. It should be supported by the parents. The Gurukula, the school should be done by the parents. That's what Prabhupada said. The GBC has no money. GBC members, some of them have money because they're gurus. Some don't have. Some zones are very poor. Some are rich. So it's, but, and then a lot of temple presidents expect the GBC just to sign on to whatever they want to do, to give it like, okay, and not to be told what to do or what not to do.
Right.
But the GBC is supposed to, Prabhupada gave a lot of instructions, and the basic one is to travel, preach, and make sure that the temples have good spiritual program. People are chanting the rounds or following the principles. And, generally we're given 2 or 3 classes every day when we travel.
Wow.
Now more, sometimes on online stuff.
Yeah.
And so Prabhupada made it. Because Bhaktisiddhanta had told his disciples to make a GBC. He didn't make it before he left.
Right.
They made one, but some of them were not satisfied. And they said that we were much more dynamic when we had a big acharya, and it was much better to have a big acharya. And they appointed someone, and it didn't work out, and everything split up.
Right.
Prabhupada made the GBC first. And he used to sit in on the meetings. Balavanta Prabhu was on this SPT one, and very, nice. So Prabhupada used to attend the meetings, and then after, I know the first time I went to Mayapur, Prabhupada didn't attend the meeting, but they would bring their resolutions to him every evening, and then he would approve mostly. Sometimes he wouldn't approve, and he would guide them. It was, for one thing, that the movement grew, and someone has to manage. And Prabhupada, many letters, he said, you don't have to ask me these questions. You can ask the GBC. So he wanted to be able to focus more on his translating work.
Right.
So that's one reason. Main reason, I guess, because there's a lot of management, in a big society and many temples. It's not like an easy job. Devotees that went to Russia and they come back after 2 months visiting 90 temples.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And at that time, Russia, there was no good water, and this KGB was checking everything all the time. So, but it made a lot of difference to make a lot of devotees.
I have a question.
A lot of it's just conflict management.
Right. Yeah, it's not as glamorous as people might seem. Like, oh, it's like a real glamorous thing. But from what you're saying, it seems like a thankless task in some ways to kind of keep track of what other, the spiritual development of a community, and maybe people being like, from the history of the GBC, people being like very, critical of what you're doing, even without hearing from you. Like, for hearing what you're talking about, it's kind of like opening my mind a little bit about what someone who is a GBC has to do on a monthly or yearly basis, visiting all these places and giving classes and things. I guess my question would be a historical question. You're saying Prabhupada created the GBC. So then when he created those 11 zonal acharyas, what was the connection between them and the GBC?
Well, they were all GBC members.
Okay.
And there's on the SBT one, there's a lot of discussion from that. So, we just kind of heard about it. I was a book distributor and I was really absorbed in it. And I was an airport book distribution leader. I didn't have a lot of time to think about things. Unfortunately, some things I feel pretty guilty about that I didn't know about, like the Gurukul and stuff. You just zip in and out of Dallas or something and not really know what's going on. But
Right.
the thing is, he definitely did not mean that they became some acharyas or whatever that word is, right? Like him.
Right.
And many devotees were averse to that when they tried to do that. Some GBC members, very much not favorable to it, but most of them stuck it out because they had their responsibilities. And it just, everyone got, not everyone, many devotees got chased away with this zonal thing. And that's the whole history where it came from, the Gaudiya Math, actually, that idea. But the idea that just because you're a Diksha Guru you're an Acharya, because that means a teacher by example. In Thai language, the teacher is called Achar, activity, teaches by example. Many Asian languages are like, because they come from Sanskrit. Not that they become capital A Acharyas like Prabhupada. So temples had Vyasasans that were so close to being like Prabhupada's, it was really hard to tell which one was bigger. And when I went to Africa, they had a lot of leftover ones. And they had two in the temple, and they were asking me, I said, I'm not going to sit on that, and they were hurt that, well, why you're not accepting our offering,
Yeah.
I was trying to measure, and, the seat would be 1 inch smaller, but the top was bigger. And, finally they understood, and now we only have, the Prabhupada has a big one. And, there should be a nice seat for the speaker, but not exclusive. So this whole thing came, and it just got so crazy. And then, so after 87, the first few years I was at GBC, it was actually very fascinating because it was all philosophical discussions, how to deal with, the new gurus and the acharyas and the worship and all these things. And,
right.
Bhakti Charamaj there, and, some people that were very learned and also very close to Prabhupada. And that was actually really nice. So we worked out a lot of things so that there's no more simultaneous Guru Puja,
Right.
And sometimes exclusive Guru Puja. I had in one place stop Prabhupada's, to establish. So there's kind of crazy things were going on. And then more and more everybody realized this is not right. And when some started to fall down off the big chair, then, we did a lot of work to try. Maybe we've gone a little bit too far the other way to minimize the position, but that's better. And now we have like 100 different gurus. Some of them are, not really well-known people.
Yeah.
But they have disciples, sometimes a pretty good number. But they're not famous, big people, But they're respected because they're good, they're sannyasis and some householders. We want to get more. I've asked several godbrothers and they didn't want to. When I first asked Mahatma Prabhu, you should start initiating, we need help. He said, no way, I'm not, but then, so many people were asking him for initiation. And
right.
So that's how it works. Usually, that's another thing people are mixed up, that the GBC is just appointing gurus. Not at all like that. It's not.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. What do you want to ask?
That what's the way that a guru becomes like authorized in ISKCON? Is it that they're appointed, or and because the critics say that, oh, you can't rubber stamp a guru.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was on the committee. We had a called law revisions, because the GBS made a lot of resolutions, and they were all written in a book, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very organized, and sometimes they weren't being followed. So we had a committee. It was myself, kind of just extra. Gugaranga started it, and Jayapataka Maharaj, Rabindra Sarup, and Bhakti Rupa Prabhu. So we went over all these resolutions and took out the ones that were duplicated. And then Rabindra Sarup mostly, but we all worked on it, wrote the whole thing about, you know, becoming a guru and standards, what a guru is supposed to behave and all these things. Also temple presidents, GBC, you know, what is this, what is that, a lot of things. And they're all in the law book. Mm-hmm. Which is, again, you know, constantly being revised and trying to fix it up, make it very organized. It's online, you know, with a wiki, whatever that is, you know. And so generally, if someone is preaching and many people, you know, are wanting to be their disciple, usually they'll be in a particular area, and the leaders in that area will recommend them. And then they have to get like 10 different leaders to fill out a questionnaire about, you know, why they think so and what are their qualifications. And then that comes to the GBC. And it's actually been even lightened up, so it's much more on the local leaders now than the GBC. So the only thing the GBC does is they get the name, and they get the, you know, the list of his history of preaching, and you know what the leaders are saying about him. And then if no GBC is against it for 6 months, then they become authorized.
Have there been times in any meetings that you've been in where someone was like, no, I don't think that's a good idea that they become a guru?
Unfortunately, with Madhajis, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not too many I've ever tried, and is still working on that one. Otherwise, I don't remember.
Interesting.
Maybe one or two for different reasons, and then it worked out.
Right. Where are they with the woman Diksha Guru thing in
it's you know, there's a committee working with the Indian and people together, and
right.
I have no idea.
Right.
It's life, you know.
It's a touchy issue.
Yeah. And second generation also. We need to have, you know, because now there's many devotees who got initiated in 1979 or 80 and are big preachers for 40 years and have many people wanting to be initiated by them and everything. But their guru is still alive. So that's something we have to work out. And so, you know, some think no, Prabhupada said, and others don't agree with that. So it's still in the books, you know.
What would happen if we kind of got away from trying to make it into a very authorized and kind of organized way of appointing, not appointing, but, you know, that whole recommending. Yeah. If we got away from that and
by their local people.
Right. If we got away from that and just made it kind of like a free for all, like if a person is inspiring to someone and someone sees them as their guru and they take initiation from them, why does the GBC have to get involved with that? From your point of view?
Well, as far as I can remember, Prabhupada said, you know, the GBC can, like Prabhupada appointed some because of what they had done. You know, their loyalty in their preaching and everything.
Yeah.
And he said the GBC can deal with making others. So it's a question, and it could be chaos. And you know, the GBC is a position where damned if you do and damned if you don't. Why didn't you tell us? You know, I chose this person, and somebody must have known about that 20 years ago somewhere else. He did this and that.
Yeah. Right.
So that's why it comes to the body, because the local people may not know the history of the person. But so far it hasn't happened, you know, that somebody says, no, this person said this and that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it even has to be 3 GBC that say something, not just one.
Oh, I see.
And then they're not rejected, but it goes for discussion.
Right.
It's not like they're automatically canceled out.
I guess it's a way to like checks and balances.
Yeah, hopefully. And you know, it's been adjusted a few times. That the deputies, you know, that are all temple presidents and local leaders and regional secretaries, they worked out a much more simplified version where the local people have much more to say about it. The GBC is practically not involved.
Right.
Just that final okay, you know. It's very difficult because it's not like, you know, traditional time when most gurus, they had their ashram, isolated place, their disciples lived with them, you know, and everybody knew each other. And
yeah,
of course, you know, some superstars like Narottam Das or something, just everyone who heard from him for a couple of minutes would want to get initiated. And he could deal with anybody, you know, big Brahmins, scholars, and smart Brahmins and criminals, and everybody would just change just by hearing from him. No, none of it. Prabhupada was like that to some extent, to a great extent, actually. So we can't imitate Prabhupada, but he did give a structure, and he did give a lot of things that, you know, have to go on. So temple presidents have to decide who can live in the temple. It's not so pleasant sometimes. Even on the New York City Harinam here, we have Kali Krishna Prabhu. You probably know him.
Of course, yeah. So
I was saying to Ram Roy what a great, you know, loyal person he is. And he said, yeah, and he's in charge of deciding who will lead the kirtans. He said, that's not the most pleasant job, you know. Someone say, well, what about me, you know? Although he tries to he gets more or less everybody throughout the day, you know. So temple presidents also, it's not like it used to be. People thought, you know, if you become a sannyasi, then you get all the maha, all the girls bow down, you get all, and so many want to be sannyasis. Now there's not so many want to be sannyasis. Finding someone who wants to be a temple president, not so many. You know, because people know what it means. You know, financial reports. The GBC is supposed to get financial reports from all the temples.
Right.
But like in Africa, they don't even have a financial report for their temple. They just, you know, the money there's not that much coming, and it's not so easy to do, you know. And then try to help them, you know, say Africa, they don't have money ever. So somebody has to get donations and then buy the books and get the books shipped over there. And then they have to go through all kinds of who knows what to get them out of customs. And Krishna's finally given us some arrangement, but, you know, very tricky stuff, you know.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, I can see why people are not so inspired to be temple presidents, because maybe, you know, you have a GBC in your zone and they could feel like I'm not able to do what I want to do because maybe the they don't agree with their GBC, or the GB's like breathing down their neck, kind of like, you have to do this, you have to do it like this. And the temple president, maybe someone my age, could be like, I actually don't want to do it like that. I want to do it this way. Of course, staying within the parameters of Prabhupada's teachings and things, but doing it in a different way. So how would you kind of inspire someone to kind of take up that responsibility, but at the same time respecting that they might want to do something differently?
Well, I know in the past there were GBC who were like that. And if they got it put into an area where they weren't there before, they would often just throw everybody out and bring in their people. I don't think that happens anymore. Maybe in some places, but as far as the GBC members now, I don't know anybody who's like that. But it's not like, you know, there will be a disagreement. For myself, I learned just to encourage everybody, unless something's like really crazy.
Right. Right.
But I've experienced that sometimes someone shows me their idea and I think, well, this is never work, you know. But then I just say, okay, go for it, you know, and see what happens. So they can take credit for the failure or the success. And then that works pretty good, you know. Some things succeed. It's hard.
GBC, yeah, probably. Go ahead, Maharaj. Sorry.
Well, to get things like financial reports and stuff, they may not like to do that. For I don't know what reason. I had one temple where they just gave me so many excuses, and I never could understand what. Nobody in the temple knew anything. Only one person knew, you know, what was happening, and there was no question of mistrust or anything. It's just, why not tell everyone?
Yeah.
Because every company reveals their finances. It inspires. Exactly. That inspires donors. It's not like it hurts. So mainly, you know, GBC is just trying to make sure, like, you know, devotees are properly situated. And there's a lot of conflict resolution. So now the GBC didn't exactly create it. Braj Bihari did the ISKCON resolve.
Right.
But the GBC certainly approved of it and invited, you know, one world expert friend of Braj Bihari's to come and speak to the GBC. And it's been very busy, you know, they're just overloaded with cases all the time. Often it's between temple presidents and the congregation. It's again between temple presidents and the GBC. It's between so many things, you know. And so we tried to make rules about loaning money and, you know, so many things, but the devotees get in trouble, you know. So that's just another thing that the GBC deals with. It's one of the main things. So in the GBC college, we're trying to give people a chance to have some training before they get into management, which includes temple presidents, zonal, you know, supervisors and stuff, to know about these things, how to do these things, so they don't have to just go in and someone will take over a temple, or someone will become a temple president in a temple where there's big debts, and they have to take responsibility for it. You know?
Yeah.
Or the GBC has to take responsibility for the previous mismanagement. Wonderful.
Yeah. Regarding the GBC college, I was always thinking like, well, older devotees didn't go through kind of like through all these hoops to become GBC. They just were like, okay, you're going to become a GBC, and you learned on the job. But now from what you're explaining it, there's ways of training devotees to deal with certain situations that they might come across that the older generation didn't have that kind of training, and they had to kind of go through different hardships.
That's what we're hoping, that, you know, it'll help. We had, of course, battlefield training, because everyone who became a GBC was a very successful preacher.
Right.
Prabhupada chose them that way, and after that, they were chosen that way, you know, because they were creating temples, they were making devotees, they were doing everything. And so now we're trying to, you know, it's much more, but at least the devotees I know that have gone through it, they're quite happy with the whole school. And it was not easy, a lot of tests, a lot of papers to write, you know, but they were happy because then they know what's going on, you know. So we got some younger new ones coming on now, and hopefully we can get a lot more because time marches on and we're not young boys anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and strokes, heart attacks, various things.
Yeah.
So these are what else, other things we have to deal with because it's very stressful. You know, I hear some say, oh, you know, if somebody only takes 1 or 2 vacations a year, flying may be kind of fun, you know, right? But if you're flying every couple of days, it's not so much fun.
Right, right.
When you get stuck in airports for a day or two and, you know, things like that. Or one time I got on a plane, 2 times this happened, and it wouldn't start for some reason. We sat on the plane for 6 hours, and then they said, everybody get off. They served the food, they had the movie, everything. Then they said, everybody get off at 2 o'clock in the morning, go to a hotel, but come back at 6 or something. You know, these kind of things happen, you know. It's not like glamorous, and it's not like we all have a big gold, you know, a black Amex card, and you just go first class whenever you want. You just go to the airport and say, give me a seat, you know. You got to be always scrambling for the cheapest flights. And so, you know, but it's because Prabhupada wants it done. So that's what keeps everybody going. That's what hopefully keeps everybody going.
Yeah, some people think that the GBC has tons of money, but actually the GBC itself, the budget is like very small from what I heard.
The GBC body is very small, unfortunately. There's been so many attempts to try to make it bigger, but it seems like, I don't know what reason, but it doesn't happen. Some GBC members have a lot, you know, because they're gurus and they have rich disciples.
Right.
Some are very poor. They're just very, you know, making it. But everybody, you know, because they're sannyasi or they're traveling preachers, they can get airfares and stuff. But there's a lot of money in the movement of the members and the devotees in the congregation.
Yes.
And they want to build lots of 10 million. In America now, I know of 3 $10 million temples coming up right now. But devotees claim the GBC didn't initiate those projects.
Right.
Initiated by the local devotees. And then they're complaining, why are you building temples and why you're not building schools? Because the GBC doesn't have the money to millions of dollars to build a school. But still schools are there, and schools like London has done a good job. Devotee care was come up from the GBC, and it's become a very popular thing now, right? And that's interesting. When we made the first strategic planning, somehow or other, for the first time, I'm in this room every morning. And they're doing construction right outside. Always happens.
Okay, no problem. I know, you know, you're in the temple, right? So
yeah. So, well, it's wonderful that New York Temple is really fixing everything up. You know?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So that's wonderful.
Really on fire. Everything is getting remodeled and fixed up. So, one of the committees was called preaching or something like that. So we were meeting, and Achintya Prabhu from Ukraine, he brought up the idea that what's the use of preaching when a lot of devotees are not satisfied? So we changed that committee to call Devotee Care. And we started, you know, that was with those committees, we brought in a lot of devotees that were not GBC members, you know, from different parts of the world and with different specialties. And we had some very wonderful meetings. Jayapataka Maharaj is on that committee, Radhanath Swami, Bir Krishna Swami, myself, and then a lot of others who were very active, Bhakti Vriksha preachers and things like that. And, we got a lot of things going, had seminars, a nice newsletter. People were really getting interested. And then it expanded into a big international thing now, with devotee care course, and, and many temples have a devotee care division now, and, trying to take care of devotees, because it's not only just to feed them some, a couple meals a day. You got to take care of spiritual life, got to take care of their mind, body, emotions, and spiritual life. So anyway, devotees become much more conscious, and that was a GBC initiative, actually. Quite a lot of things, but we're not very good at advertising. This has been something we always talk about, and just hasn't happened. That's why the SPT now, they're not GBC members, but they're trying to show more what's going on,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and they did a really good job with all these different interviews and, advertising different things that are going on in the world.
Right. Do you ever have any regrets about joining the GBC? Because it seems like could take away, like a managing part could take away from someone's spiritual life, in a sense of you have these responsibilities that are not exactly like, sitting and chanting or sitting and reading, but you have to like you said, travel so much and things. So any regrets from joining the GBC?
It's one of those things, it's like if you read about the emotions in Nectar Devotion, you have everything all at once. They're all contradictory. So it's like that, somehow, and sometimes it's a big headache, but then if you can accomplish something, it's good. And the meetings are a very good association, because otherwise we don't get to associate very much. Most of us are spread out all over the world. But so yes and no.
Yeah.
I wanted to at the time because, like you said, I was afraid there was another GBC that was very powerful volunteering to take Japan. And I thought, no, he's going to just put me in the corner somewhere. So, and then he actually encouraged me and voted for me. So, it was a test. I was never thinking of going all these other places and everything. It didn't help Japan at all when I started going everywhere else and diving into all their conflicts.
Right.
But it was very rewarding, because somehow or other everywhere things got better by Krishna's mercy. So can't take credit for it, because I know some places I go, I'm the same person everywhere I go, but nothing happens. Some places I go and everything happens. I'm the same. I give the same class. I do everything the same. But, there's a lot of factors. Yeah. But I think Prabhupada, he's pleased and he wants us to do these things.
Sure.
The main thing, we have to preach, If we don't preach and people don't understand, why should we do these other things? Only by preaching and, are they going to understand? So, we have to study. Well, every GBC studies a lot. Traveling is sometimes good for that, especially in China, because you travel by train and bus.
Oh, right.
Very easy to read all day.
Right.
It's not so easy. Train and bus, it's very easy.
Do you ever feel like really stressed out about, because if you have like a large zone, there's a lot of things that could, I'm sure you get tons of emails like, Maharaj, there's this problem and there's problem on the other side of the world.
I don't get so many because my zone, a lot of people don't speak English. Now it's getting more. And they didn't have much email until recently, like China, Indonesia. Things didn't work, you know. Now it's coming more and more, but it's our life, you know. Rabindranath Swarup once said, you know, I never would have joined if I'd known it was going to come like this. Because we joined for the bliss, you know. It was just bliss. Kirtan, Prasad, Bhagavad Gita, you know. Everything was bliss. Everybody was friendly to each other. But we made it grow, and you know, we have to live with it. Just like you have children, so when your children become teenagers and they're not quite so submissive, you might sometimes think, oh my God, you know, why did I do this? Right? But at the same time, you relish trying to deal with it. So we have the movement, it's growing, and that's just life. And hopefully, you know, more will come up that are willing to take the responsibility. And there are, I mean, there's amazing leadership devotees in the second or so-called second generation, all wherever I've been, just like incredible, highly qualified people, spiritually and maturely. Not that they're just, you know, what do you call it? Masters of, you know, management from
MBA,
yeah. They're spiritually also on that level. Many, and they're inspiring devotees, and especially in the Middle East, where I've seen it, it's just inconceivable. So, you know, that's life. You know.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, there's difficulties and there's rewards.
Right. I wanted to ask you, because I know there's a lot of critics of the GBC and a lot of misconceptions, and I think we cleared a lot of them here. But what would you say to someone who says that there is actually not that much control needed of different things? Like, if you kind of let things go how they're going without trying to control everything, like the GBC is meant for a governing body of a management of the society. So maybe the misconception is that, is it the spiritual authority, or is it the managing authority, or is it both?
Yeah, it's not meant for control. You know, it's meant to encourage and nourish and supervise. You can't control, like, you know, so many people.
Right.
And many of the things we deal with is the devotees complaining about the temple president, you know, being a controller and not letting anything happen in the temple without going through him, you know, and, you know, everybody has to go through him. You know, you want to make a flower garland, you got to ask the temple president, you know. So the GBC deals with that a lot. Complaints about the temple president. So GBC, Prabhupada was not a controller, you know. So we're supposed to represent Prabhupada. But I imagine there has been in the past people that they think because I'm the GBC. And sometimes, you know, somebody may be really off. But at least myself and the GBC that I know, they're not like that. They're trying to encourage everybody, but you know, at the same time, we have to watch what they're doing and deal with, you know, the conflicts that come. Sometimes the conflicts are completely, you know, true, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just somebody else's emotional this and that. Tribal conflicts, gotra conflicts, you know, racial conflicts, so many different things are there. False ego. So, but we just want to encourage everybody, you know, whatever you're doing, please do it. Very good. That's, you know, Prabhupada just always encouraged everybody. So if we can follow his footsteps like that, but sometimes he would get angry and chastise. A lot of people don't believe that, but I've seen it. And people that were with Prabhupada a lot, they saw it quite often. But his anger was much different. It didn't last. He would make a big show of anger and then again, nothing. Never mentioned again.
Wow.
You know, if we get angry, we may keep bringing it up over and over again. Burns our liver out. So,
Right.
but how much can you control? You know, you can. So, some people they don't know at all what's going on. You know, many people they don't even go to temples and they think they know everything about what's going on. And
right,
it's not. You know, I know some of my godbrothers. They just can't get over how they were mistreated in 1982 or something by a GBC. But it's not like that anymore. Everybody was floundering then. Prabhupada was gone and nobody knew what to do. And, you know, I know myself when the day that Prabhupada, that I found out he left, we sat around and cried and sang Jai Anila, you know, for a few hours. And then I didn't know what to do. So I was a temple president, but I just went out for book distribution. And as soon as I was distributing books, I felt like everything's fine. Prabhupada is behind me and he's happy. And then I started thinking, you know, for me, there's really no difference. I was never with him very much. You know, saw him once in a while. And I still have my service and we have the books. But then I thought, but for the movement, God, you know, this is a really big thing. How are we going to live with it? That we don't have this final authority that everybody accepts.
right.
Although even in Prabhupada's time, some did not accept, you know, but they had to go along with it. You know, they would think Prabhupada doesn't know about America and different things.
Right.
So, but somehow we're living, and the fact that the GBC still exists is something, you know, amazing. With all the troubles that have hit the movement, with gurus falling down and, you know, with properties getting lost and governments, there's so many things. And still the GBC is meeting and trying and coming up with more programs and, you know, more things to try to help keep things, you know, going. Nobody's trying to control, you know. But people don't know, like the CPO, they don't know that GBC created it. GBC is not trying to protect child abusers. GBC is trying to stop it, but it's not, you know, it's just something that goes on all over the world.
I guess when you look at it on a larger macro scale, the GBC, people can be so critical to like it at a whole because of mistakes that have been made in the past and whatnot and things like that we all know. But when talking to you, like pulling someone out of the GBC and just talking to them about their story and hearing from them, what's their motivation, it kind of changes people's views, I would say, because you're talking to a real person as opposed to judging a whole body.
Yeah, I one time, it was back when things were just kind of coming together, and Kavichandra Prabhu gave a class in Mayapur, and he said, you know, all our GBC members, we love all of them. They're all great devotees and saintly people. But when they get together, you know.
Yeah, I see what he's saying.
Yeah, and that was, you know, like painful. Right. But that's why Prabhupada made a GBC, collective intelligence, he said. You know, none of you individually can do it, you know, but together you should be able to come to some conclusion. Some things take really long time. Some things come up, you know, pretty quick.
I like the point you made about that, you know, ISKCON and GBC is still around. And they're still trying to meet and still trying to manage a society. When if it was in a kind of an Acharya system, it might have been like little factions and breaking up. But this has kind of kept us unified, even though it seems like it's like it might be a drag to some people that we have the GBC, but actually it's a necessary thing.
And GBC doesn't bother anybody, except like recently one person was banned from ISKCON. He's putting up a web page that Prabhupada was a Nazi and all kinds of things. You might know him. I didn't know, but so the GBC had to say he's banned from ISKCON. But normally they don't.
What does that mean exactly? Like he can't come to an ISKCON temple? I don't know him. I've heard of him. I don't know who he is.
That he's not a member of ISKCON, and what he says does not represent ISKCON.
I see. Okay.
The public and the media, they're asking, why? Who is this guy?
Right.
He's claiming to be the next Acharya, the real follower of Prabhupada. So a few people like that, but otherwise, the GBC is individually. We all have to do our work, which means traveling and preaching and hoping that help devotees and counseling devotees a lot.
Do you think there are things to improve in the GBC, and if you do, what would be those things be?
Well, there's things to improve in everything, so that's hard to say exactly what. I think to improve, we need to get more new people on. Sure. Which is happening automatically. So now there's a succession committee and there's a whole system and, bringing people up and, but basically they come up for the same reasons, that they're very successful preachers somewhere and devotees want them, like one temple in my zone, they wrote me and said, I can say it was Devaki Nandan, he's now our lawyer, but they wanted him to be initiating guru, and they asked me to help him, do all the red tape. So I did, but then he didn't want to. But he's gone from nothing there to thousands of devotees, and besides being a lawyer and besides helping ISKCON legal affairs, which is not some small job. So, but that's how things happen, And so now if somebody, so we just made a few new GBC recently and more lined up. And the GBC college is not like everybody becomes a GBC, but at least they can be very, leaders that know what to do and what not to do and don't have to just learn on the fly,
I noticed that, Maharaj, you're very much into distributing books wherever you go. And now you're on the, you're on the Harinam party with Ram Roy Prabhu and distributing books, and Rath Yatra distributing books. What keeps you going in book distribution when you're I don't see that so much with other older GBC members, coming on the front lines and kind of preaching that way. So what keeps you going doing that?
Well, everybody was a book distributor before they became GBC.
Right.
And for me, it was like, I was never sure if I'm pleasing Prabhupada with whatever else I'm doing. But when I was distributing books, I was always quite convinced Prabhupada likes this. So right. It helps me to, to focus my mind and on the other work. And devotees say they get inspired, so that, encourages me. But others are doing it in much bigger ways, inspiring thousands of devotees in their zone to distribute zillions of books and stuff.
I think example is really important, especially for a GBC member too.
It's a kind of a challenge, and I find it purifying to talk to non-devotees one-on-one, rather than just talking to devotees who are kind of like, yeah,
right.
Right. Yeah, it's dangerous,
Yeah. Yeah. When you meet someone, what do you tell them? I'm interested to know what your techniques are.
Everyone thinks, the same old it just depends, you know, it's the same old story and nothing particular, just yoga or meditation or how are you, or
Yeah.
like to read. It's becoming simple. People are quite receptive now. You know, I was talking to one guy yesterday, and he said, "I meditate every day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate." He's a young guy, you know. So these kind of things are happening. You know, people are hearing about it and stuff. So they're very receptive.
Yeah.
You can just more or less get right into it, you know. And of course, with the New York, we had the kirtan there. But it's just, for me, it's just necessary to keep my sanity. Other people maybe, you know. I don't know what everybody else is doing.
Right.
But I know they're all absorbed, and many are writing books, and many are, you know, have big zones, you know, where there's much more temples and stuff, much more contact, much more things they have to do. So,
what would you say to someone who feels like they, you know, some young people who want to help ISKCON and because it's their home, but they feel a little bit weary about entering some leadership position because it could be detrimental perhaps to their spiritual life, or because, you know, with leadership comes like pratishta and all kinds of things. So what would you say to someone who's younger who wants to do something for ISKCON but is not sure?
well, I think it's the same advice, you know, like you see in a lot of books about business, rich people advising you. Find what you really like to do and then just get into it. You know, if it, whatever, just, you know, you can try different things, but, you know, or if you see something you really like to do, like a lot of young boys now, they just like to kirtan, you know, but okay, do it. And then somehow we should make arrangements that they can do it many hours a day. They'll get purified. They'll get inspired. I just try to encourage everyone, and, you know, what do you want to do? And then, you know, just do it. Even if I have a different idea what I'd like them to do, because I think this is what we need at the moment. Some people are like that, but Prabhupada, there was only a few where he could just say, you go and do this, you go and do that, you know. Mostly he was like, what do you want to do? And he wanted people to do what they wanted to do and take care of their health, which means not just the body, but, you know, everything. So that's my style. I can't push anybody or force anybody to do anything. I heard Bhaktisiddhanta said, I have 4 disciples in 2 hands and 2 legs.
Wow, I like that.
So, right. You know, but we hope to encourage everybody one way or another. Find what you really like to do, but do it for Krishna. You know? Even they say, like, you know, do what you like and the money will come. Don't look for the career that will make the most money.
Yeah.
So many people are miserable because of that. I'm sure you've had people on your show talking that you've had much really inspiring people on there, but you do what you really like to do. And even if money doesn't come, you don't care, you know,
because you're happy.
Like, I think, I don't know who had said, Gandhi or somebody, you know, find a job that you like and then you never have to work.
Right.
So find a service you like that you really want to do, but just do it for Krishna, whatever it is, even if it's your career, you know, but realize Krishna gave you the ability and, you know, the education, whatever, and offer whatever you can to Krishna.
Yeah.
Realize that you're working towards the goal of, you know, eventually surrendering everything to Krishna. Can't do that immediately. Some people do, but, you know, there's always people that just can surrender early on and just totally dedicate just to ashram life or something, but not the majority. But find what you like to do and do it.
Right.
Because so many things have to be done.
Mm. I know this last year has been really tough for everyone, kind of stand still. Where did you spend most of that time in at the COVID when no one was traveling?
I was in Bali.
Oh, okay.
Which is a paradise, supposedly.
Right.
It's pretty boring, beautiful scenery and beaches and because we had some difficulty with the government, or not really the government, but the caste Hindus, seemed like Lord Chaitanya had. And so it used to be a paradise of Harinam every day and a lot of book distribution and big programs. And then all of a sudden we didn't do any of that. So I had very good material facility. Devotees had a guest house. I had a whole floor, 5 bedrooms and bathrooms and a nice kitchen and
Wow.
10-minute bicycle ride to the beach. And so, but I started thinking, and devotees, we didn't have big programs or anything, small one, once in a while, small one. So I had a lot of online classes and online stuff.
Yes.
So I was reading a lot more than usual, which was good. And finally, I kept thinking I got to get out of here, but to be one thing or another, because we had difficult decisions to make about how to deal with this. Finally, they started getting it together. And then I just said, okay, I'll go to New York Rath Yatra.
So they ironed out all that stuff and
No, it's still going on, but they're taking action very nicely.
I see. Okay.
We're getting a lot of support from the public.
Yeah. And how's it been in New York with the Harinam and Radha Govinda temple, and what's been your impression from seeing it over the years, now till 2021?
Well, it's another world, and of course, Radha Govinda, the deity worship's going on. It always did, but there's a lot of devotees at Mangal Artik. There's a lot of classes, and the Ram Roy's boys are all doing Bhakti Shastra on Saturday morning, and it's really nice, actually. Very dynamic. Restaurants going on. It's not huge, but it's okay. People are coming. They're happy. People buy books. There's a lot of potential future remodelings going on everywhere, fixing up everything, And in the future, once the TOPP is built, then Lakshmi can come from the BBT and stuff for adding on to the buildings.
That's a plan, huh?
Yeah, you can put many floors on top.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, Maharaj, right. That was really, really nice to talk to you about the GBC, because I know there's a lot of misconceptions around the GBC, and speaking to a long-standing member, it was really valuable, I think. Maharaj, if you would kind of leave us with something for our listeners, some parting words.
Yeah. Well, in Africa, it used to be we were always getting on the television and radio, and they would always ask that.
Oh, really?
So I would always say the same thing, because I remember John Kennedy, who was the only American president I ever admired that I can remember, when his inauguration speech, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country.
Right.
So ask not what ISKCON can do for you. Don't ask what Krishna can do for you, but ask what you can do for Krishna, you can do for ISKCON. Then you'll be happy. We don't want to be welfare, people.
Yes.
the GBC is not meant to be a welfare society where everybody comes and gets their dole,
Yeah.
ISKCON is made up of the members. And so some places the members are very, very enthusiastic and very fired up and doing wonderful things. Some places it's difficult, but just think, what can I do for Krishna? Krishna, help me. What can I do? And you can take advice, from guru and devotees or whatever, but everyone has their own personality. There was a time when Ramaswamy wanted to film some of the top book distributors and then teach everyone else to just do exactly, say what they did. And Prabhupada said, no. He said, everyone has their own genius. And we see that, everybody is, the more we can express our own personality and offer it to Krishna, then the more we'll be happy, and it will attract people.
Right.
What attracts people is happy devotees. So find what you really like to do, be happy, and the movement will grow, and it'll grow around you, and you'll be happy.
Right.
What can I do for Krishna?
What can I do for Krishna? Don't ask what ISKCON can do for you.
Yeah.
And I think
it is the law of karma is you get what you give. Ye tam mam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As they approach me, I reward them accordingly. Right? That's Krishna. So we're all getting what we give Krishna, we're getting back.
And I think sometimes devotees who get caught up in the controversies of ISKCON or the GBC, they fail to see that what is the point of ISKCON? The point of ISKCON is to make people Krishna conscious. That's the main point.
Yeah. And
so everything else is everything else is a detail to that principle.
Something like that, yeah.
Would you agree?
And, too many devotees are caught up in all the conflicts of the world.
Right.
But this Kali Yuga, it's the age of conflict.
Yeah.
We want to, I talked to Braj Bihari, we were very close for a while. And said, what we really have to work on is conflict avoidance.
Right. Not resolution, avoidance.
Well, but because we haven't avoided it by being enough Krishna conscious, we have to utilize different techniques for resolving them.
Right.
But it doesn't work, and we just did it. He just did a thing in Japan, and it really helped bring all the devotees together. Just a few classes on how to communicate and how not to communicate.
Right.
And devotees got really enlivened by it. So, but if we're enough Krishna conscious, physician, help yourself. Was that, I don't know, from the Bible or Shakespeare?
Physician, heal thyself, right.
Is that Shakespeare, or it's in the Bible, I think?
Yeah, it's the Bible, yeah.
Yeah, physician, heal thyself. A lot of times the conflicts we see, it's Atmavan Manyate Jagat. In psychiatry, it's called projection.
Right. Yeah.
And what we see others doing, I'm familiar with certain defects because I have them, and I see it in everyone else, but I don't see it in myself. So I was just reading Bhakti Vinod yesterday, Amara Jivana,
Sadapa Pirata.
Yeah. So I'm so bad, I'm just envious and rascal and sinful, and I have no propensity to do anything good. And I'm completely happy to see other people suffering, and I can't stand to see other people happy. We have to overcome that mentality. And that's why he's showing us. Because it's lingering in Kali Yuga. Everybody's trained like that. That's the modern media. And
Well, thank you, Maharaj. I think we'll end there.
I'm happy. One time, Indra said, Prabhupada said, chant and be happy. said, so if I'm not happy, that's a guru aparad, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it was a knockout. I was, oh my God, you know.
Good point.
Yeah, he was very serious when he said that. So.
Yeah. Did you know him? Did you know him well?
Some, you know, I mean, I had some intimate exchanges with him, but I was never in Vrindavan that much.
Right.
But we had good God brotherly, you know, rasa.
Nice, nice. Great.
Amazing personality.
Yeah. Well, Maharaj, thank you so much for joining me to talk about your experiences and talk about the GBC and give us a glimpse into the life of a GBC member and what a GBC member has to do. And I think it really changed my view a little bit on you know, looking at it on a whole as a body, but then looking at it in a kind of a micro way is per person. And that was really fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us.
GBC is just a bunch of individuals who are really good devotees and really serious and really want to please Prabhupada and help the movement, you know.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's good to remind ourselves of that for sure.
Any one of them you meet, you would be very, very happy to spend time with.
Right. If you have any recommendations of any other members who want to come and talk on the show, then please do message me.
Well, not GBC member, but one person you should talk to is Parashuram Prabhu from London.
Oh yeah, someone else mentioned him as well.
Food for all, and
Food for all. Yes.
Rath Yatras all over, you know, so many things. He's like maybe the most fearless preacher in the movement.
Wow.
And a straight.
Quite an endorsement.
Yeah. If you can get hold of him.
Sure.
I'll try to think of others. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you
very much, everybody. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
No, I don't think you did. Thank you, Marge. Please, I'm going to turn off the recording, but please stay on. I just want to say something to you after. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for listening. That's the late morning program with Namras with episode with His Holiness Kavichandra Swami. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.